That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Superwoman! See what I did? Oh, I tell you, some days, with everything I've got going on, it's all I can do to get stuff done. One thing adds to another, adds to another, adds to another, adds to another. And before I know it, I have no energy, no wind, and all I want to do is lay down and quit. But you know, that's the thing. When you're coping with chronic conditions, sometimes you've just got a lot on your plate and you don't even know where to start. And one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. So in my case, I have several different chronic conditions that play on each other. For example, EDS is known to cause gastric problems and among a slew of other things. And that EDS, gastric problems, one of those that I happen to struggle with is gastroparesis. Now, the interesting thing about gastroparesis is it can be caused by multiple things or nothing at all. Gastroparesis means that the stomach is partially or completely paralyzed. So it makes it really, really hard to get nutrients. And then next thing you know, if you don't get the right nutrients, then other things start to go away. With limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, for example. Limb-girdle muscular dystrophy affects your ability to walk. If you're not walking and using those muscles, then it can actually affect your bones. Those bones can become more porous. It leads to osteopenia, which eventually develops into osteoporosis. So one thing leads to another. And when you're coping with multiple things all at once, sometimes it can be difficult to figure out which to focus on first. And that's kind of the point of this video today. I want y'all to understand that when you're coping with a chronic condition, you're not just coping with that condition. You're coping with everything that comes with that condition. And this is something a lot of people don't understand. They think, oh, you've got muscular dystrophy, so you can't walk. Well, but what they don't understand is not being able to walk leads to osteoporosis, which means your bones are more brittle. So you can't do as much stuff without risking breaks. That can even affect things like what surgeries can be performed, dental work. I just had to have a tooth pulled recently. There was a chance they would have to drill into my jaw. I had to get a release paper from my bone doctor, from my primary care doctor, giving that dentist the right or the permission or go ahead, all clear, whatever you want to call it, to do the dental work. Anesthesia can be affected by medicine. So if you've got to have a surgery, but you're taking medication for another condition, that can cause it. Diabetes can cause gastroparesis. Like you're already struggling with your blood sugar. Now you're going to throw in an inability to eat properly and to absorb those nutrients properly. And of course, if you're not getting calcium, that's going to affect your bone development. If you're not getting protein, that's going to affect your energy level. If you're not getting vitamin E, then it's going to affect your skin. EDS causes skin problems. Ah! What are you going to do? So, how do you cope with it? How do you deal with one thing building on another, building on another, building on another? The best thing you can do, honestly, find out what your condition can cause and go ahead preemptively start looking for it. Just because you don't have a heart condition right now doesn't mean that one couldn't develop. And the earlier you catch it, the earlier you can treat it and the better off you are. So for whatever condition you've got, you're probably going to be dealing with some secondary stuff. That secondary stuff is actually the dangerous part. You know, EDS doesn't kill you. But EDS causes vascular problems that can kill you. Muscular dystrophy generally won't kill you. But if you break your back because you've got osteoporosis, life gets a little harder. So, I want to talk a little bit about gastroparesis because it's a very common secondary condition. So gastroparesis, as I mentioned, means that your stomach is partially or completely paralyzed. I have about 70% paralysis, maybe a little bit more. It can be caused by diabetes, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it can even actually be caused by muscular dystrophy. Some forms of muscular dystrophy cause gastroparesis. So, how is gastroparesis treated? Okay, there are very, very few things I can say to give you hope in this, unfortunately. But I can tell you that it is manageable with the right targeted treatment, but it often takes multiple things. Gastroparesis can be triggered episodes. They cause nausea, obviously, vomiting, bloating. Basically, the food goes in. It takes forever and ever to get out. Sometimes it can even spoil in your stomach so that you can't. You might as well eat something that's spoiled on the counter. It's still in your stomach. It's still in your body. You can treat it, though. There are multiple medications, including Reglan is the first thing they do. This is supposed to help kind of stimulate the stomach and get it to just do its thing normally. It's a daily preventative treatment. It's not something you take for breakthrough episodes. If you're having a breakthrough episode, there are some things you can take. I'm actually allergic to it, but the number one most effective nausea medication is a medication called Phenergan. It's really, really good medication. It has pretty few side effects, and it can be taken for emergent episodes where you're throwing up actively. They do have it available through the IV. Reglan is also available through IV, by the way. It can also be treated with, there's a liquid form that's a little bit easier to digest, as well as the pill. And there's multiple different levels of milligrams for those. One that I have found, since I'm allergic to Phenergan, that is really, really good for me is one called Zofran. Now, Zofran comes in a tablet form. It comes in a liquid form, but it has this wonderful form called the ODT. And I always called it on the tongue. It's not what it means. It means orally disintegrating tablet. And Zofran ODT, you put it under your tongue or on the tongue, suck on it, keep it in your mouth as long as you can. It's actually absorbed through the pores and the vascular system in your mouth and hits immediately. It actually is a repressant. It kind of represses the stomach a little bit and keeps it from being as active and jittery, and it helps me a lot. There is another medication called Compazine available in pill form, and I think liquid. Don't quote me on that. I'll double check and put it up whether I'm right or not. But there's another form that's even better if you're having an emergent episode. Now, my doctor says Zofran is better as a preventative. You take it before you get sick, but I found it is somewhat effective after. Compazine is really wonderful because you don't have to put it in your mouth at all. It is a suppository. It's not huge. It just dissolves in there, goes straight into the blood system, and does a really, really good job for emergent episodes for the most part. Now, if you've tried this and a couple others that are out there, those are just the primary ones. I'm not going to go through the whole pharmaceutical list, but if you've tried these and found you are still having problems. Now, I mean, you're getting sick once a week or more often, you can't control it, nothing seems to help, then you might consider a gastric neural stimulator. They do feeding tubes. I hate feeding tubes. I've had them before. I regurgitated the feeding tube. It became lodged in my esophagus. I almost choked on it in the emergency room waiting on triage. It was extremely scary, and they ended up having to make the tube really short because I was throwing up so hard that everything in my stomach, including the end of the feeding tube, was coming up. I was pulling liquids out of my bile. Now, to treat my gastroparesis, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know it was gastroparesis. So leading up to it, we had tried diet change. We were on Reglan. I was just fighting it every single day. Every morning I woke up nauseous. every morning I would throw up until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I could not keep down solids. I was having to like pre-mash my food and make sure it was like almost a puree or liquid form to get anything down, and then half of that was coming up. It was affecting my lower digestive system. I was not able to get down the fibers that I needed to keep my lower gut flowing and moving properly. And as a result from that, since this is about multiple chronic conditions, the gastroparesis led to the malnutrition problems and the inability to take in the fiber, and that ultimately led to my colon prolapsing. That was horrifying, and they ended up having to remove the sigmoid colon. Prolapse has to be surgically repaired. They have to go in and actually remove that. So one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. So you can kind of see how these things escalate on each other, and it's really important to treat it to get to the root cause. Diet change is the number one thing doctors will recommend before they will put you on any medication, before they will do anything else. They will recommend diet change. I don't mean to skip around a little bit here, guys. I'm just trying to get all this information out to you. So say you've done the diet change, on a liquid diet, you are eating, the diet change isn't just what you eat, but how often and how big of portions you eat. So you don't want more than like your fist. You know, I've got little hands, but I wouldn't, like, no, like a little bit less than your fist per meal. Like, not per portion on the meal, 3 of those. No, per meal, 1 fist. And try to eat, spread it out. Instead of having 3 meals a day, split it up to 6, 5 or 6 smaller meals per day. Those meals need to be a liquid form of fiber to keep your lower gut moving. They need to have lots of protein. You need energy. You're gonna need that energy. Your cells need that energy. And with my muscular dystrophy, I need the protein. You need to have enough sugars and electrolytes every day, like every day. Dehydration is the number 1 problem. You need to make sure try some pureed bananas or banana tea, things that are high in potassium. I have had hypokalemia, been diagnosed with that no less than 6 times. That is a lack of potassium, people, directly resulting from gastroparesis. One thing led to another. I keep going back to that because that's the whole point of this video, is you need to figure out what the root cause is. So you've identified that it's gastroparesis. You've tried diet changes. You've been on Reglan for a long, long time, about a year. It hasn't worked. Maybe they've even put feeding tubes in. Those were ineffective for you. Now, even if you've got feeding tubes, you're not stuck with them. You can get out of that. There's a thing called a gastric-neural stimulator. I briefly mentioned it a minute ago. And there goes my shoulders. Muscular dystrophy. Right there. Ow! Okay, so you've tried all of that. There's this thing called a gastric-neural stimulator. It's by Enterra, which is a wonderful company. What it does is there is what they call a generator or a battery. It's about the size of a hockey puck, and they implant it usually on the right side between your ribs and your hips and your pelvis, that kind of area in there. It has leads, which are just wires that go from it, and they run across in between the skin and the muscles, and then plunge right in between the muscles and go past the diaphragm to your stomach. And there they connect at 3 different points. Yeah, 3 different points. I'll put up some diagrams and stuff. That's why I'm way over here. Room, stuff, goodness, info. Look in the descriptions too, by the way. I'm going to put as much links and info as I can in the descriptions to kind of help y'all get more info on your own if you want to. So be sure, guys, everybody, check the descriptions on the video. Okay, back to it. So you've done the diet change. You've tried Reglan every single day. Didn't help regulate anything. Catch that? Reglan, regulate. Didn't help anything. Maybe you've got feeding tubes. Didn't help. Now you're wondering what you can do. So you've got this gastric neural stimulator, and these electrical leads go from the generator, run through the stomach, and they go, or run through the abdominal wall to the stomach, and they attach at 3 different points on the stomach, and they provide a regular pulse of electricity. And that electricity stimulates the stomach to actually contract and to move properly. And I tell you what, I had feeding tubes for a year. This helped me get them out. This helped me to where the Reglan wasn't helping. This helped so much more. I went from being sick every day and in the hospital at least once a week to getting, when it's working properly, to getting sick maybe twice a month. And they would be bad enough that I'd have to go to the hospital, but that in between was gone. I mean, if you think about it, that goes from 30 days sick per month, 365 days a year, to 24 episodes of gastroparesis where I'm throwing up and I can't stop, and nothing, not even water, not electrolyte water, nothing stays down. So, what could be the problems with the gastric neural stimulator? Well, one, between every 7 and 10 years, the gastric neural stimulator's battery needs changed. They're not going to take it out, open the compartment up, and put a new battery in. They're just going to replace the whole generator pack. It's a much more minor surgery. The surgery to implant it, they have to go from your solar plex right about, right about there where the V of the ribs is, and they go all the way down past your belly button. And they open you up. That's because they've got to run those leads through everything and make sure everything's good. They create like a little pouch. They just go in between the skin and the muscle and create like a little pocket. And that's where the stimulator generator itself goes. The battery does have to be replaced, as I mentioned, about every 7 to 10 years. And it's a much more minor surgery. 3-inch incision, little bitty thing, unplug, replug. Things that can go wrong with that stimulator. I'm actually about to have the leads replaced. It's been 7 years since it was implanted. Those leads being replaced means that they're going to have to do the full surgery again. They're going to have to open it all the way up to replace those leads. Not super happy about this. The reason they have to replace the leads is because they believe something happened to the insulation to where one of the wires has a crack on the insulation. And if that happens, the electricity will basically backflow backwards and forwards, both directions along the line. And the way we understand and know that this is happening is because the stimulator itself is actually shocking me. It's not painful, okay? Don't get me wrong. It's not like, shock. No, it's more like kind of like the muscle just kind of twitches and cramps on its own a little bit. And it's just type sensation right there. It does it drastically enough that when they turn the stimulator up, you can actually see the muscles jump around and everything. I went to my doctor, the surgeon that implanted it, and he talked to the Enterra rep, and they said that they pulled it out and they looked at it and they inspected it and they said, no, it's not broke. The generator itself is fine. So they repositioned it and turned it down. I've been considerably sicker since then. I am back to nauseous every day, having trouble digesting the food, and having to rely mostly on liquids. And there goes my wrist. That's the EDS. And having to rely mostly on liquids. And then I've been in the hospital about 3 times in this last month. That's actually why I dropped off doing videos for a little bit, is because we've been trying to figure out what's going on. So when that didn't fix the problem, they told me that it was not a device malfunction. It was simply shocking me in a place and location it was not designed to do, which sounds like a device malfunction to me. I managed to get back into the doctor that actually treats my gastroparesis. He's a specialist in that area. He's a specialist with this device. He's one of the first doctors involved in the development and everything of it. And he he said, no, that's not acceptable. And he is sending me to a different surgeon with orders to replace those leads. So I'll be having that surgery pretty soon. And hopefully that will take care of a lot of things. So speaking of how chronic conditions affect each other, IBS is a chronic condition that I also have. Now, there's a lot of them. So the IBS is actually made worse by the gastroparesis because with IBS, you need to control fiber. That fiber is very, very important. All of this can lead to anxiety. Anxiety can increase the stress hormones in your body, which can trigger gastroparesis episodes. Hypokalemia causes heart problems. EDS, the actual main killer part of EDS, as I mentioned, is the vascular. It's aneurysms, strokes and aneurysms. Not so much strokes, but the aneurysms. Because what happens is the blood vessels rupture in the brain and they bleed out into the brain. Really, really scary. Scary stuff. So, there's no way I'm going to be able to go through every chronic condition and talk about the secondary conditions and how they build up. The point of this video is to help you understand. You need to look at whatever chronic conditions you have, find out what they can develop into, and start actively targeting those things and preparing for those things. So if you know that EDS can cause gastric problems, then you need to start going ahead and dealing with gastric problems. Find a gastric doctor. If you know that muscular dystrophy can cause osteopenia and you're having trouble with mobility, go ahead and find a bone doctor. Get it checked out. At the very least, you will get a baseline and be able to track any progression of those problems. It is so important for you. I cannot say this again. I cannot say this enough. Educate yourself about your condition. Don't expect your doctor to do it all for you. Yes, you're paying him for that, but it's your body. You're living in it. Know thyself. You need to learn and find out what your condition can lead to and start actively targeting those issues to make sure that they don't interfere with your life. If you're struggling with multiple things, sometimes it can be hard to find balance. With gastroparesis, you can't digest fiber the way most people can. It simply doesn't go through the system. But with IBS, you need that fiber or nothing's going past the stomach, or after it gets past the stomach, nothing's going through the rest of the way. It's a lot. It's a whole lot. The one thing I can tell you to do is to talk to your primary, get information about your condition, find what resources you can learn more from. If your doctor doesn't know everything about muscular dystrophy, that's because it's rare. You can't expect him to know everything about muscular dystrophy. Get in to see a muscular dystrophy specialist. There are support groups. Your doctor's going to be able to find those support groups, and those support groups can give you the information you need. If you have limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, I encourage you to go to the muscular dystrophy. If you have any form of muscular dystrophy, I encourage you to go to the muscular dystrophy support group. They're a great group, and they have so much information, and they can even help you get in contact with the specialists you need. If you have EDS, there are wonderful online support groups and so many things that you can do and so many resources available. Your doctor's going to know about them. Talk to him. Don't be ashamed of one thing building into another, and don't let it get ahead of you. Don't lose hope. You can do it. You can do it. I believe in you. If I can do it, you can do it. Trust me, I'm the biggest weenie on the planet.
Well, what you think? Did you enjoy the video? Did it help you out? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to post and share this so that other people can get the same information too. And give me a thumbs up if you like it. If you didn't like it, please let me know why so I can do better in the future. It's all about growing around here. Grow and learn, grow and learn. Share, comment, post, like, do all the good stuff. Bye.